Hello everyone, these are the Eachine VRD3 goggles. Inside they feature a 3-inch screen with an OSD, micro USB charging, 4 navigation buttons here on the side, a DVR with a button, telescoping visor. We've got a 3-piece head strap. DVR accepts up to a 32GB card. You get a patch panel and a circular polarized antenna, 2 different thicknesses of foam, a USB cable to do your charging, and some wipes to clean the lens. They weigh 316 grams. It's unlikely your glasses will fit inside, but thankfully for me, I didn't need them. As of the time of this recording, these are on sale for $59. Banggood indicates that their regular price is $99.99. Oftentimes with Banggood prices, you'll find they're always below whatever that suggested retail price is. And I was pretty happy because I just did the Top Sky goggles and I was pretty upset. I wanted to get to these, mainly because I'm always looking for something that helps people get into the hobby. And goggles are really, really expensive. Not everyone can afford to go out and spend almost $700 on goggles. Fat Shark HDOs and rapid fire and Axie antennas and just all this stuff. It's very expensive, and I don't expect too many people to jump in that way. I would expect a lot more people to do just what I did when I first jumped in, was to find something within my budget, and hopefully this is. Now, some details about this product. As I mentioned in the quick roll, it does telescope out. And oddly enough, I really expected this to be a lot more clunky than it is. I thought it would jostle around in there and it would get wedged and caught. But I really just, it works pretty well. It's got these little beads that have been kind of molded out. And I don't know if it's obviously it's grabbing in there somewhere, but you really can't feel it. It feels quite smooth when you push it in and push it out. So that's something to note. You do have a light up here that indicates whether your DVR is recording or not. And as indicated, that is the button. That is a multi-purpose button, and we'll get into that in a minute. But basically, when the light is blinking, it's recording, and when it's not recording. You also have a light down here for your charging. I think it actually just kind of emits out here. It's not through either of these holes. It's like inside, and you just kind of see the red light coming through. When that red light goes off, you're done charging. And then we have 4 basic buttons on the side. This is your menu button. I think this is minus, this is plus. This is your power button, and this is also your scan button. So the goggles are very, very simple, and that's good, especially if you're getting started. The last thing you want to do is to have to learn all the thing you have to learn to do to get in the air, plus learn to fly, and then have to fuss with your goggles. It's pretty dead simple. And I did find with these that I did a comparison with my Fat Shark HDOs with rapid fire and my Fat Shark HD3s with LaForge, and it locked onto the same channel when doing the scanning as those two. And that's a very good thing, because one of the things that I see repeatedly is people submitting videos on Facebook, or they're sending me messages and showing me screenshots of what it looks like inside their goggles, where I think they're off just a little bit on the channel. You get kind of that wavy, almost, I don't know, hypnotic, mesmerizing sort of stuff in just specific areas, like around lights or in a window or a side of a piece of furniture. It's at the right angle. It'll have all those squiggles in it, and you're just off on the channel just a little bit there. But thankfully, in my experience, this locked on quite well. Now, don't let the dual antennas fool you. This does not have diversity. This is dual antenna diversity. And it does, and I'll show you this here in a minute, it does switch on the screen, and it switches between A and B, and it tells you that on the screen. Jumping into some of the details here, you'll notice that I have 2 different types of foam, because I did find that my nose, this rested kind of on my nose right here, right at the end of my nose. I don't have a particularly big nose, so I suspect if you do think you might have a nose that's on the larger side, this could be an issue for you. But what I found was, I noticed it, like when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, what am I going to say? What's the fit and what's the feel like? What do you think about the plastics? Is the foam any good? Is the straps any good? I'm thinking of all these things, so you're being hypercritical. That was something I noticed. But when I went outside and I fly, or when I'd sit down at the table to fly inside, I didn't notice. It wasn't pinching my nose, forcing me to breathe through my mouth, nothing of that nature. I did switch the different thicknesses just to see if I could relieve some of that pressure off the end of my nose, and I didn't find it changed. It didn't change it enough to where I could notice. That's the gist of it. I think the only thing it's missing would be a fan. And that could be an issue come the warmer months if you live in one of those areas that's humid sometimes, because you do have a lens that's inside this telescoping mechanism, and you can get condensation behind there sometimes. I know in my previous iteration of box goggles, that was a big problem. If we had a big rainstorm blow through and then it come up into the 90s, you'd have all sorts of humidity, be like 73% humidity. and you pretty much couldn't fly because you'd get condensation behind the lens. So that's something to be aware of. But if that's a big deal to you, you're probably going to have to splurge for goggles well outside of the $100 range, and these are only $59.99. So we've covered the fit and finish for the most part. The straps, they're not especially good, they're not especially bad, they're kind of middle of the road. They work as you might expect, a 3-prong strap. I do think sometimes I can get away with removing the top strap in this particular case because the battery does feel like it's in front. I didn't do a tear down on these, so the top strap actually helps keep some of the weight from really dragging down on your nose. But again, in flight, I didn't notice it. It's one of those things I notice it when I'm trying to be critical of the product. The menuing system and everything is on the side, but I want to do one thing before we jump to the functions of the goggles. Now, I complained about the Top Sky goggles and how long it took to turn on. So let's show this one. Here we go. There, it's now on. So it took quite a while. I really don't understand why that is. I get that you don't want a button with a slight press that'll turn on, so if it's packed away in a bag or something that'll come on. But why does it take so long? Drives me nuts. That makes me wonder why Fat Shark hasn't done anything about their on-off system. Maybe they're seeing this as a problem and they haven't found a good button to replace it. That's why we have to keep plugging in our batteries. Anywho, so this is the screen. You can see in the top right. Hopefully my camera will focus. I'm going to bring it in here close. Actually, I'm going to zoom. So in the top right, hopefully you can make that out. That says B. Maybe I need to bring it up even closer here. So in the top right, you might be able to see that it says B, and then it's got a bar over there, and that's indicating the antenna strength, which is at its bottom bar, because I don't have anything plugged in. Down there at the bottom, my camera is really not focusing very well. There, that's better. Down at the bottom, it tells you your frequency that you're on, and then in the lower left, you have your voltage. And you can remove that through the OSD. See, look up here. It's switching. Hopefully, it didn't do it anymore. It was, when we were looking at the lower part of the screen, it did switch between A and B. No, it's not doing it now. Let's move on. So let's go into the menu. So I'm going to press this button right here on the side, and you can see it coming up there at the bottom. It went away. It doesn't stay on very long, and there's no exit, so we have to kind of get through this. I wish I could get my camera to focus. I'm going to zoom in more. So the menu is going to come up when I press the button here on the side. Trying really hard to keep this in focus. So we got backlight. We can increase that and decrease that. Put it back. Brightness, contrast, saturation, AV input. That's important to know about there. We'll get back to that. Oh, there it goes. The menu already went off. Okay, we're back to AV input. And then we've got the frequent display on and off. So you can take that off, but the battery and the antenna stuff at the top is going to stay. That's something to know when you're flying something with an OSD. You may have to rearrange. Let's get into the DVR here for a second. Hopefully my camera will correct. So I'm going to press this middle button to get into the menu, and then I'm going to switch the AV input over to DVR using the other buttons. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out. Now I'm going to press and hold for 5 seconds the DVR button. I'm going to cheat and kind of look here too. There we go. 1 moment it says. So this is the default screen. I need to zoom in again. So you have a menuing system where you just use that button on the top to cycle through your DVR. I need to get my finger on it, sorry. So I've got my finger on it now. So you can see the runtime there on the screen. This is actually a blank file. I need to go back. So if I press and hold, do you see that in the bottom left? Looked like a little camera came up. I'm going to do it one more time. Keep your eye on the bottom left. When that comes up, you release and it goes to a new file. You see our file count now at 0014. Alright, so now we're at a tail end of the flight. I know this flight's actually short. The DVR records in 3-minute segments. Something to keep in mind. And I don't see a way of changing that. Maybe they'll come out with a firmware update that allows that to just loop. That's my preference. Maybe you have a different preference. If you have a preference for how your DVR records, leave that down in the comment section below. Now that I've kind of shook a little bit and we're looking at the top of the screen, you can see that it has the runtime up there. I'm going to press and hold one more time to get to our next file. Here we go. So I'm going to press real short and get this file playing. There's no fast forward or anything here. So you just have to kind of watch it through. You can't say you've put your quad in a tree or something of that nature. You're going to have to play the file and just kind of play real time up to the point where you put it in a tree or in a bush or you lost it, wherever the case is, in order to get it around. Now, I'm going to play some additional DVR as we get into this review just a little bit more. There's not much more to say because, you know, we covered most of it, but some of this last part will be about opinion. What we're looking at here is me cruising around. The camera that I'm using is the Foxeer Falcor, and I'm actually cruising like this because I'm keeping my eye on the antenna at the top. Does it say A or B? We can't see it now because we're looking at the DVR, but I wanted to see it switching and I wanted to see the impact. As always with DVRs, the DVRs show a lot more breakup than you see in the goggles. I do fly around the house, and I'll show you that clip, but I can't make it all the way around. I've actually found that there's only one receiver that I can get all the way around the house. It gets pretty broken up, but I can fly through it, and that is the Rapid Fire. The Rapid Fire is quite amazing, but it's not a fair comparison to be trying to expect a $59 product, complete product, to compete with a $150 receiver that requires $500 goggles. But that's what the DVR looks like, and it works just fine. It's a little bit unique in the fact that it's using the few buttons it does have in order to do the features. You do not have the ability to take photos, which we did on the Top Sky, but I'm not certain why you would want that. That seems to be more of a function of maybe planes or some other sort of slower moving thing, because to reach up and press that button while you're in flight seems a little bit unreasonable to me. So to me, that's not a big deal that we don't have that one feature, especially at this price point. One of the other things that I did to kind of test my eyes on this, because I was able to fly with this. Not only was I able to fly, I was able to fly indoors, I was able to fly outdoors, and I wanted to fly it outside, not for the purposes of testing range, because it does work pretty well, but I don't think you can come in with a budget set of goggles and a budget set of receivers inside the goggles to expect great range. I thought it was on par with most things that I've used that come in a box goggle format. But I was able to fly outside, and I wanted to test that because of the scraggle season that we're currently in. It's winter here in the northern hemisphere, so we don't have any leaves to see stuff. And a few times I did clip a few branches and I couldn't quite see them. And that is kind of the difference between a goggle like this and a goggle that has like the Fat Shark. The Fat Shark goggles, because of the optics and the way they use them, everything is so clear and it's so close to your eye, and it's more immersive than this 3-inch screen at distance is going to be, that you can see some of those ghost branches or scraggle that's out there with the Fat Sharks that I couldn't quite make out until it was too late with this goggle. But again, I'm comparing multi-$100 to $60. That's not fair. I did need to have it all the way out, and if you're curious about my prescription, I am a negative 0.24 in my left eye and a negative 0.22 in my right eye. I am in my mid-40s, and I did not have glasses until I was 36 years old. So I did not have glasses all my life. That came on later in life. And with these goggles, I think if your prescription is unique and you have astigmatism or anything of that nature, I wouldn't suggest just buying a set of goggles. I would always suggest trying some on, finding a local flying club and getting your face in them. And speaking of face, I thought it felt fine. I did not notice any light leak. I did not notice any light leak. I have more light leak in my Fat Shark goggles than I do with these. There's no light leak that comes up through the nose piece for me. Of course, my nose kind of rests here on the end. I didn't notice anything coming around, whether I'm inside or outside, whether I'm sitting under bright lights here and I'm trying to be super critical. I didn't notice any light leak. I didn't notice it coming through the side. It seems like, as far as light leak goes, in my opinion, they did a really nice job. I think if I were to look for improvements in this, I think I would go with an external battery. I think that's one thing that long term, you're going to have to replace the battery eventually. Your runtime will get shorter and shorter and shorter on this, and then eventually it will become kind of unusable. You may only get, 30 minutes out of it or whatnot. It says a runtime is 65 minutes, which is decent. That's 65 minutes being on. So when you're done with your flight, turn your goggles off, pick up your quad, get your next battery ready to go, maybe hang out with some buddies, turn your goggles back on, go fly. That'll get you a lot of flight time. But if you're just flying by yourself, pack after pack after pack, 65 minutes is also a lot of flights. So I think as far as the battery goes in its lifetime, its runtime, as it's new, it will be fine. But down the road, it's going to get shorter. And in order to replace it, you're going to have to open this up. And you see we have 4 screw holes here on the bottom, so we're going to have to crack those apart and open these 2 pieces. I have not done a teardown yet because they work. Usually I don't tear stuff down if they work. The number one question I suspect many people will come through will say, these or the EV800Ds? Well, they're a little bit different. These are more compact. The EV800Ds have a larger screen, so if you want a more immersive experience, something that feels bigger, like you're in the second row of a theater or something of that nature, I think the EV800Ds, I'll link those down below. If you're not familiar with them, they're very tried and true goggles. Many people have used them, and they've worked well for many people. These are just a bit unique in that form factor is going to be a little bit smaller. It telescopes out, and I suspect the price is probably $10 to maybe $20 less than the EV800Ds. So you have to decide, because I think from a flight experience, there's very little difference. From a reception or signal clarity, there's very little difference between these and the 800Ds. I think the 800Ds, as far as their fit goes, they have the bump outs right here. I can see how that would irritate more people. Let me grab the back set of that goggle. This is the back half of the EV800Ds. I just wanted to pull those out for those that aren't familiar. And the front half slides together, which this is the front half right here. So it has a bigger screen, it's got diversity, and all the buttons are right up front. But the purpose in bringing these out was these cheek pads. I think these cheek pads might not be a bad idea for something like that. And you can implement it on these if you just take some extra foam and you stick it between there. It won't have exactly the same function. These did have a really large nose cut out, and there was some light leak through there. I don't recall having light leak through here, but the mesh, the foam mesh that they've used here is actually nicer in my opinion. This is straight foam over here, so in the hot summer months, this will likely soak up the sweat, and eventually you'll either want to clean it or you'll want to replace it. And this probably not so much. At least that's my guess. The foam pad just Velcros on, so it's not permanent, it's not sticky. You just line it up and stick it on there. Why it comes in two pieces, I'm not certain why that is. I couldn't give you a reason for it, other than maybe if you line it up perfectly with the cutouts, you never have to take it off. I can see why you do this two-piece design if it wasn't Velcro, if it was stick-on. Let's see, I want to see something. I haven't looked. Yeah, you can see how the Velcro, maybe you can see if I get my camera angle just right. The Velcro through there is also separated. So I suppose if you had everything together and you did need to open it up to replace your camera or do some cleaning on the inside of the lens or something of that nature, you could without taking those two bits off. But as far as I'm concerned, this could be one piece. I guess you could do what I did. I tried the thinner foam on top and the thicker foam on the bottom in order to increase the comfort just a little bit. I was looking for some of that nose relief. The DVR recordings that I had, it looked like they're running a 640 by 480. It looks like the bit rate comes in right around the 2400 kilobits per second marker, and we are seeing 29 to 30 frames per second. It depends. The DVR and the frames per second, if you look at it, it will depend. If you just look at the properties of the files on the details tab of your Windows-based computer, you'll notice that the DVR files change from one to the next. I've got 4 open up on the screen in front of me, and they range in frames per second from 21 to 29.93, and that has to do with the breakup. Maybe we'll solve that one day. I hear Tony Cake from NickburnsRC is hot on the trail of a firmware update. Don't know if it will work for these goggles, though. I think it's Fat Shark specific. So hopefully I've been rolling all sorts of flight footage up there. I know when I did my last goggle review, a couple of people were disappointed that there was no flight footage in there. One of the things I had to get used to is this is a much different perspective. So I think if you've already got goggles like Amway Commanders or you've got Fat Shark goggles, you're not looking at these. These are entry-level goggles, your first pair, or to replace your first pair because of budgetary reasons. They're a quality product. Eachine has a better reputation when it comes to delivering a product that works. I think this product I would recommend over the Top Sky product because it is from Eachine. Banggood's much more likely to honor returns, defects with this product. There's representatives on Facebook you can get with if you have troubles through Banggood of getting support. There'll probably be a lot of people owning these. I suspect there'll be a lot of reviewers out there with these, so there'll be more people with experience. So I would recommend these over the Top Skies, but I can't necessarily, I would say I would recommend these over the EV800Ds. That's kind of a choice you'll have to make. I'll put links down below to where you can look at both of those if you're looking at it from purely a price standpoint. You know, the price point can really shift, depends on the time of year that you're looking at this video and what Banggood is up to. So it may be cheaper one day and then it might reverse and the 800s be cheaper the next day. Who knows? Check them out below. Make your choice. But whatever you do, stay away from those top sky goggles for right now, because I think there are way too many problems with those in order to bother with. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.